Hi there, this is Paul French with Innovation and Tech. Today, we're sitting here with Gary Shapiro, president of CTA, right in the middle of CES. This is the 50th anniversary of CES, so big deal. A lot of great companies, a lot of great innovations here as people are getting set up on the exhibition floor. We thought we'd sit down with Gary Shapiro and talk about kind of the 50 years of CES, the impact that this organization of his is having on the world of technology, and his plans for the future. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for coming. This makes it an exceptional show because you're here covering it.
Thank you. We actually spoke to you in 2014, and a lot can happen in 3 years, in the world of technology. So, what has struck you about the last 3 years of technological change? What has been the biggest shift, do you think?
I first came to a CES in 1981, and after a while the shows meld into each other. But, we started out in 1967 in New York City, and it was radios, televisions, and phonographs, only 3 products. Now, I wasn't there, and color TV was a discussion, but when I went to my first show, the focus was on VCRs and camcorders, and it was so cool. I saw this thing for the first time called a compact disc and a CD player, and I couldn't believe the high quality of the sound that you can get without all the lousy things that happen with records, even though records are coming back and there's nothing wrong with them. Some of my best friends have records. What we've seen grow over the years is we saw the evolution and creation of HD TV and then 4K Ultra HD. We said that in the last 10 years we've seen the huge introduction of the transportation into the show. The automobile entire ecosystem is here, from the components makers to the car makers. Cars are being introduced at CES now, and they're often electric, they're self-driving or active collision avoidance. There's a lot of things that are happening in many different categories. In the last few years, I think it was a few years ago, there's a lot of focus on 3D television. That was one of the big losers, frankly. I mean, it was a great feature, but it wasn't a product. And sometimes there's a tendency to have something that's overhyped. Also, it was around 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe 5, were tablets. We saw 50 different tablet companies. There was tablet companies before Apple. Apple popularized it as we had projected, said there's room for middle screens here, and the tablet became a huge thing, but then everyone copied it and thought they'd make a lot of money. But there's only much room for so many companies in a category. So we now have over 25 different categories of products, and this year, for example, for the first time, we have a sleep technology, products to help you get to sleep, to measure your sleep, to all sorts of monitor your sleep, all sorts of things. And we have a focus on baby care. We have a focus on elder care. And the elder care is really important because we're getting older as a society, we're living longer, and the fact is that the parents and the kids don't always live near each other. So you can monitor your parents and see how they're doing and take care of their needs in different ways. We're seeing emerging product categories that we know will be around for a long time. We're seeing the first hints of 5G and what that'll mean for smart cities. We're seeing robotics in a big way, all sorts of robots. And for the next 10, 20, 30 years, we'll see more and more robots that do more things. A lot of this is tied into artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is absolutely huge. It's obviously you have the capability of processing speeds. You have predictive intelligence, data analytics, and then you make the jump to where you actually have devices that are able to make logical jumps and think and behave in a logical way and solve problems. So we're seeing so many different areas of growth, and basically this show has become the centerpiece for the globe and the world on the focus on innovation, and innovation is so critical to the future nature of the human condition.
That's really interesting that you mention, a lot of this connected technology. Also, like all these small, startups, that some of them, triumph and some of them fail, and the ones that do succeed create these landmark, epoch-making technologies. Like right now it's the smartphone. Right now it's we've got all these small companies competing for the IoT space, for the hub space and everything. What do you in 1967, we're talking about transistor radios and new televisions. What do you think is going to be is kind of poised to be that next big epoch-making technology here in the coming years?
Well, it's more of a concept. It's a concept of connectivity all the time. Mm-hmm. It's the Internet of Things. It's the fact that because of the ubiquity of smartphones, sensors are available at a phenomenally low cost. And the sensors measure pressure, they measure altitude, they measure so many different things. I saw a company from France in our startup area that has a group of sensors put together to measure smell. So it'll indicate what is in the environment, and it will smell things for you. And they're have an increasing database of smells, and it hooks up to your smartphone. Now, that's just one example of literally hundreds of thousands of new business opportunities that are created. Because from a safety point of view, from an aesthetic point of view, you could do a lot if you know about smell. And the same thing you could do with sound. I saw another French startup that had a device that focused sound within a narrow few-inch column. So you could basically go in and out of this column and get incredible sound, and the person next to you would be hearing something totally different. So there's a lot of developments that are happening very quickly. A lot of them have to do with connectivity. One of the high growth areas for us is the smart home. The fact that you could be in your home and you could see who's at your door. Or you could be in Las Vegas and you could see who's at your home right now inside any room in your home with incredibly low-cost connected cameras. And this all has to do with connectivity and the internet. It has to do with algorithms that people create where they're smart. And of course, the ultimate one is the self-driving car. Over 1 million people die every year from car accidents globally, and most of those can go away in our lifetime, which is shocking. Now, there's a lot of ramifications to that. There's issues of jobs. There's issues of what are the rules. There's what do you do about the insurance companies? How about all the poor truck drivers and collision repair
Who's
shops
that
that
go in there?
liable?
If a self-driving car gets in an accident, is the software's responsibility?
And that'll be easily resolved through just setting what the rules are. The example that people, if you have to choose between a kid and the people in the car, who's going to choose? Well, we've never had that decision ever in our lives as people, so I don't stay awake worrying about those things. I think it's important that we look at the goal in mind, and the goal is to save human lives. And we're doing that with self-driving cars. We're doing that here with other products. We're doing that with agricultural products that measure whether soil has to be watered or not and sets it up automatically. We're doing it in healthcare with all sorts of devices that measure your health very quickly, could get information to the doctor. Now, we have a shortage of doctors now. And the problem is a lot of people just go in for checkups with their doctor. They don't have to go in, and oftentimes a caregiver has to go with them. The amount of human waste of time that is and doctor waste of time is huge. So that to a large extent, devices can replace those visits, which are just checking in on your status as opposed to seeing you when something's really wrong and a doctor's expertise is needed. So in so many areas of human endeavor where people are suffering around the world, the technology at CES is going to be solving those problems increasingly. And that's why I think so many people come here from the healthcare world, so many people come here from the developing world, so many countries are represented. We'll have 50,000 people from outside the United States. So many policymakers are coming from many different countries because the solutions to the problems of the world are very much contained in Las Vegas this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about the ubiquity of, smart technology, I'm reminded of that. I think it's 30 years old now, that essay by Mark Weiser where he's talking about, he's prophesying the tablet, all of that stuff. And he says it's the role of this kind of smart technology, this connected technology to kind of disappear into the fabric of our lives, and stuff like that. Do you see that that kind of intuitive technology that's there in the background that's not something you have to micromanage? Is that a focus here at this event, especially with all these new IoT companies emerging? They're trying to compete for this space, and how do you think that's been best enacted?
Well, I'm not familiar with the essay you referred to, which obviously is some ignorance on my part. But I will say that in terms of how companies come to market with products, they focus on what they think the customer wants. And sometimes in companies there's a battle between the marketing and salespeople and the engineering people. For too long in the consumer technology world, engineers basically just did stuff because they could. And the user interface wasn't as important. The user experience wasn't important. As Apple grew as a company, that thinking changed dramatically for all companies. So now the user experience is always foremost. And that's something where there's a lot of testing done. Even you could view CES as one big laboratory or focus group because a lot of the products that are shown here will never see the light of day. We estimate 20,000 new products will be shown here this week. And most of those will not go forward after the show because the retailers won't buy them or the media like yourself won't cover them or say that they're not good. Investors or partners or others, just they'll get feedback. We have 600 companies in Eureka Park, and they're startups. And because we are dedicated to the core principle that this should be an event where startups and entrepreneurs can show their product to over 100,000 people and give them input. Every one of those startups comes to the show with one idea of what their business model is, and they leave with a totally different one. Because that's what the trend is in startups. You don't create a lengthy business plan and spend a couple of years planning. You get your concept out and you show it to your potential customers and partners, and you get feedback.
This is the testing ground.
This is it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What's been one of your favorite success stories? One of these startups that emerged and that just went on to do great things after CES.
Well, Oculus was here just a couple of years ago, and then a month later it was sold for billions of dollars. So I think the jury's still out whether that was a good acquisition. But the point is that's probably the most dramatic. But there's so many that have come here that have graduated from Eureka Park, or that, as they tell us, they've gotten their first customer. Walmart goes through and make places an order, and they take that order and they get a letter of credit and they go into production. But more frequently, they're getting input and changing their business model. And they have relationships. They have investors. They have partners, and that's what this show is about. It used to be a retailer manufacturer show, and it still is to a certain extent, but it's gotten to be so much more. It's where anyone who focuses on innovation comes. It's where the content industry comes. There's 3 hotels here focused on the intersection of content and technology, and marketers getting their products and all the platforms are there. Whether it's Amazon or Twitter or Google, they're all here big time because they're having their own little battles to be the platform, and they're trying to reach marketers, and marketers trying to figure out how they can reach their audiences in such a diverse world, the world of new media. So everyone here is focused on innovation. And we see even the biotech industry comes here. We see industries that you would never expect to be here are here. And that's what we've become, and that has been our goal, because there's so much there. In terms of the success stories, there's just so many, frankly. You talk to some of the bigger exhibitors. They all started out as little exhibitors. And we're a volunteer-driven organization. We're nonprofit. And a lot of our most energetic and passionate volunteers were those that started literally with a 10x10 booth here and grew to be one of our largest exhibitors. One of them is AudioVox, or Vox. They own now like 30 brands. They have this huge exhibit. And their chairman and their CEO both volunteer a lot of time with us. And they say, look, you help make us. And we hear that from so many of the companies that are participating with us now. Or even some of the major retailers. They came here and they saw excited things like Randy Fry of Fry's has been a great active volunteer with us. Because the cool stuff, he's like a kid in a candy store when he walks around the show floor.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I think I can speak for the majority of the tech media when I say we're extremely excited for this 50th anniversary show, and can't wait for it to get underway tomorrow. I'm really excited for the media day over at the Mandalay Bay today. And Mr. Shapiro, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much, and continue doing what you're doing. Well, thank you, and thanks for covering the show. We really appreciate what you're doing. All right, thank you. Well, this is Paul French from Innovation and Tech Today. Make sure to check out innotechtoday.com for all of the latest and greatest on tech news and interviews. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the show.